Welcome to the Cenario Podcast, your guide to mental health and well-being. Each episode, we uncover practical tools, discuss expert insights, and explore how supplements can transform your mental health journey. Get ready to learn, grow, and thrive with us.
Have you ever walked into a room and just totally blanked on why you went there?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Or you sit down to do some work and then suddenly an hour has gone by and you've just been scrolling on your phone.
Happens to the best of us.
Well, imagine feeling like that constantly, most of the time. That's kind of what it's like to live with ADHD, and that's what we're doing a deep dive on today. Getting to the bottom of ADHD, what it really is, and how it actually works.
Yeah, and it's more than just, spacing out or being a little hyper. It's really about how your brain works, especially these things called executive functions, which you really need to, succeed in pretty much everything.
Okay, well, let's start with the basics. Everyone's heard of ADHD, but can you actually tell us, what it is?
Clinically, so ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and it's a neurodevelopmental condition. Basically, that means it affects how your brain develops and works, particularly in those executive function areas we were talking about. So people with ADHD, they have ongoing issues with things like inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. And those things have a big impact on everyday life.
So it's not just a habit or a choice.
Yeah.
It's actually a real medical thing, right?
Exactly.
It's ingrained in how your brain is built. And there are a lot of myths about ADHD, so it's really important to set the record straight.
Totally. It's not about laziness or bad parenting or, too much screen time or whatever. It's an actual medical condition.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because of those myths and stuff, ADHD is often underdiagnosed, especially in girls and women.
Oh, right, because we always picture, the little boy who can't sit still.
Right, exactly.
But it can show up in so many different ways.
Yeah, there are actually, three main ways it presents. Inattentive, hyperactive-impulsive, and then the most common is actually a mix of the two, called combined type. It's not so much about fitting into a specific category, but more about understanding how those different challenges, play out.
So let's talk about those presentations a little more. What does inattentive ADHD look like? What kind of challenges would someone with this type face?
Okay, well, think about those times when you, misplace your keys or zone out in a meeting, right? Yeah. Well, now imagine that, but, amplified. For someone with inattentive ADHD, this isn't just an every now and then thing. It's constant, and it's because their executive functions are weaker. So staying focused, following instructions, or just tuning out distractions, even their own thoughts, daydreams, is super hard.
It's almost like there's just too much input and their brains can't filter it all out.
You got it. And because of that, even simple things like keeping your papers organized or following a conversation can feel impossible.
So it's not about not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
It's really a difference in how their brain actually processes information.
Right, exactly. And that's why just telling someone with ADHD to focus more just doesn't cut it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, on the other side, we have hyperactive-impulsive ADHD. So these are the folks who have trouble sitting still, always fidgeting or restless. They might blurt things out, interrupt a lot, or do things without thinking about the consequences.
So it's not just physical, not being able to sit still, but a real difficulty controlling those impulses.
Exactly, yeah.
I bet that's frustrating, not only for them, but for everyone around them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Think about it always being ready to, take off running, but not always being able to control where you're going or when.
I like that. That's a good way to put it.
And then, as I said, most people actually have the combined type. So that's a mix of both inattentive and hyperactive impulsive symptoms.
So it's not either. It's usually this whole mix of challenges, and each person's experience is different.
Exactly. And understanding those individual differences is super important for figuring out the right support and strategies for each person so they can, really thrive.
Right, because what works for one person might not work for someone else. Okay, so we've talked about how ADHD looks, the different presentations. Mm-hmm. But what's actually going on in the brain? What's causing all of this? You mentioned executive functions before. What exactly are those, and how do they relate to ADHD?
Right. Well, executive functions are kind of like the brain's management system, right?
Okay.
They help us control our attention and plan and get organized and control our impulses. And they also help us with working memory. And with ADHD, these functions, they just don't work as smoothly as they should.
You keep mentioning working memory. What is that exactly? And how does it play into ADHD?
Okay, well, working memory is your brain's mental notepad, basically. It lets you hold on to information while you're using it. So, when you're trying to remember a phone number while you dial it, that's your working memory. And when it's not working well, which happens a lot with ADHD, it's like trying to juggle with like oven mitts
I
on,
see.
yeah, you just drop things, you
Yeah.
forget information in the middle of a task, or you space out on instructions, or you just completely lose track of what you were doing. And I mean, that can make everyday stuff like following a recipe or remembering appointments so frustrating.
I get it. It's like trying to keep all your stuff together when everything's just slipping through your fingers.
Exactly, exactly. And like, it's not that people with ADHD are lazy or naturally disorganized. It's just that their brains literally process information differently.
Okay, so we've got the executive function differences. But what causes those differences in the first place? Like, why do some people develop ADHD?
Well, it's complicated and there's no single answer. But research points to like four main things: genetics, brain chemistry, structural brain differences, and prenatal influences.
Okay, so let's start with genetics. Like, if your parents have ADHD, are you guaranteed to have it too?
No, not guaranteed. But ADHD does tend to run in families. If, say, a parent or sibling has it, the chances of you having it are way higher than someone with no family history of ADHD. So that suggests there's a strong genetic link. It's like certain genes might make people more susceptible to developing it.
Okay, so genes are part of it, but not the whole story. What about brain chemistry? Like at the level of neurotransmitters and things like that?
Yeah, well, research has found that people with ADHD often have lower levels of dopamine in some parts of their brain, specifically the areas related to reward, motivation, and executive function.
Dopamine, that's like the feel-good chemical, right? The one that gives you that like rush when you achieve something.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So how does that tie into the problems with ADHD?
Well, dopamine is super important for regulating attention and motivation. So when those levels are lower, it's harder to focus on things that aren't inherently interesting or rewarding. And that can lead to procrastination, trouble finishing things, and always seeking out external stimulation.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like their brains are craving that dopamine hit, so everyday tasks can feel super boring and unstimulating.
Right, right. So we've got genetics, brain chemistry.
Right.
You also mentioned structural differences in the brain. What's going on there?
Yeah, so studies using brain imaging have actually shown that certain areas of the brain develop differently in people with ADHD. Like the areas that are involved in executive function, those are the ones we were talking about earlier.
So like the actual physical structure of the brain is different.
Exactly. And the areas that are often affected are things like the prefrontal cortex, which is like the CEO of the brain. It handles planning and decision-making and controlling impulses. In people with ADHD, this area tends to be smaller or less active, and the connections between different brain regions, those might be weaker too, which means communication within the brain isn't as smooth.
Like some wires are crossed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Then you said something about prenatal influences. What does that mean?
Yeah, so this is about things that happen during pregnancy. Studies have shown that if a mother experiences things like high stress, or if she smokes or drinks alcohol during pregnancy, it can increase the chances of the child developing ADHD.
So it's not just genetics.
Yeah.
The environment the brain develops in also matters.
Exactly, right. Like, it's this whole combination of nature and nurture,
Yeah.
genes, brain chemistry, brain structure, and environment. It's all intertwined and contributes to ADHD.
It's complicated.
It is. And, like, every person's experience with ADHD is going to be unique because it's shaped by their own specific combination of these factors. That's why personalized strategies and support are so important.
Okay, so we've talked about these underlying causes and how they affect the brain, but how does all of this actually play out in people's lives? I mean, we've mentioned the struggles with attention and impulse control, but how does ADHD specifically affect people in different areas of their lives, like school, work, relationships, and stuff like that?
Right, and it's important to remember that ADHD doesn't just exist in a vacuum, It affects every part of a person's life, shaping their experiences and how they interact with the world.
So let's start with school. How does ADHD typically affect kids in the classroom?
Well, school can be really tough for kids with ADHD. I mean, they're expected to sit still, listen, follow directions, finish their work on time. And all those things can be so hard for someone with ADHD because of their struggles with attention, organization, and impulse control.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's like trying to focus on a lecture when your brain is just buzzing with a million other thoughts, or trying to sit still when your body feels like it needs to be constantly moving.
Sounds exhausting.
It can be, and like academically, it can be really difficult too. They might have trouble following along in class or remembering instructions. They might lose track of assignments, miss deadlines, or struggle to get through work that needs a lot of focus.
And it's not because they're not smart or capable. It's literally just that their brains work differently.
Exactly. But unfortunately, a lot of kids with ADHD end up feeling like they're not good enough. They get frustrated, their self-esteem takes a hit, and sometimes they even fall behind in school.
That's really sad. I mean, no kid should feel like that just because their brain is wired a little differently.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important to create learning environments that are supportive and understanding,
Yeah.
environments that are tailored to their needs. But we'll get into that later.
Okay, so school is tough. What about work? How does ADHD affect adults in their careers?
Yeah, well, ADHD can be a real challenge in the workplace, especially in those traditional office jobs where there's a lot of structure, routine, and you're expected to focus for long periods of time.
Makes sense. So what kind of problems do adults with ADHD typically face at work?
A lot of the same things they struggled with as kids, actually. Staying organized, managing time, meeting deadlines. And they might have trouble following through on projects, prioritizing their work, or staying focused in long meetings.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can see how that could affect their productivity and job performance.
For sure. And it can lead to a lot of stress and anxiety, even like worries about losing their job.
I guess it's not just about doing the work. It's also about navigating a work culture that might not be very understanding or accommodating to their needs.
Exactly. And it's really important for employers to create work environments that are more inclusive and supportive of neurodiversity.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so we've talked about school and work. What about relationships? I imagine the attention and impulsivity stuff could spill over into personal interactions too, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like ADHD doesn't just affect how you function in like structured environments. It impacts your social life and your emotions too.
Right.
Like some common challenges people with ADHD face in relationships are things like remembering important dates or commitments, managing their emotions during arguments, or following through on social plans. And their impulsivity, that can come out as interrupting people, saying things they shouldn't, or just acting without thinking.
So, like, their filter isn't always working properly.
You got it.
And I bet that can lead to some misunderstanding.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And hurt feelings. And relationships can become strained. But it's not because they don't care or that they don't value the relationship. It's just, again, their brains work differently, and those differences sometimes create friction in social situations.
Gotcha. So it's about being aware of those differences and trying to be understanding.
Exactly, exactly. Open communication, understanding, and empathy. Those are key for navigating those relationship challenges.
Makes sense. Okay, we've talked about school, work, relationships, but what about like emotional well-being in general? I mean, constantly dealing with all these challenges, it's got to take a toll on your mental health.
Absolutely, yeah. ADHD isn't just about outward behavior. It's about internal experiences, too. People with ADHD are often more emotionally sensitive than others, and that can make them more prone to things like anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem.
Like they experience everything more intensely.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They feel both the highs and lows more intensely, and those strong emotions, those can be really hard to deal with, especially if you don't have the right coping skills and support.
So we've seen how ADHD affects pretty much every area of life. It can be really tough, but there's hope, right? Like there are things people can do to manage it.
Oh, absolutely. ADHD is a lifelong condition, but you can definitely learn to manage the symptoms. There are lots of things that can help. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore those options. Things like medication, therapy, lifestyle changes, and we'll even talk about the unique strengths that often come with ADHD, because it's not all negative.
So we've spent like a lot of time talking about the challenges, the struggles of ADHD.
Yeah.
But before we finish up, I want to talk about the flip side,
Yeah.
like the cool stuff, the good stuff that often comes with it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's so important to move past like that deficit mindset and realize that ADHD isn't just about what's, quote, wrong. It's also about a different way of thinking, a different way of seeing the world. And that comes with some really amazing strengths.
Oh, yeah. I like that. About those strengths, what are some of the positive things that people with ADHD often bring to the table?
Well, one of the biggest ones is creativity. People with ADHD often have these super active, super imaginative minds. They're constantly coming up with new ideas and thinking outside the box. Like they're natural innovators, problem solvers, the kind of people who can really shake things up.
Yeah, it's like their brains are wired kind of like divergent thinking. exploring abilities and coming up with solutions that other people wouldn't even think of.
Exactly, yeah. They're not afraid to question the way things are or approach problems from a totally different angle. And that can be so valuable in fields like art or starting businesses or even scientific research where you need that innovative spark.
So that inattentiveness, that can actually be a huge advantage when you need to come up with fresh ideas or see things in a new way. What other strengths are there?
Another big one is something called hyperfocus. And I know that might sound weird because, like, we've been talking about how people with ADHD have trouble paying attention. But when they find something that really grabs their interest, they can go into this state of super intense concentration, like laser focus, and they can get a ton done in a short amount of time.
So it's not that they can't focus. It's more like their focus is very specific and it's driven by what they're passionate about.
Exactly, exactly. When they're truly engaged, they can block out everything else and work for hours and hours. And that can be such a powerful asset in fields like writing, coding, research, anything that requires that kind of deep immersion and sustained effort.
Yeah, it's like they have this secret weapon they can use when they really need it, when they're fired up about something.
Exactly. Okay, and then another thing that's really common is this amazing energy and enthusiasm. People with ADHD, they often bring this real vibrancy, this dynamism to everything they do, and it can be contagious, you know? They inspire people, they motivate people, they're exciting to be around.
So all that restlessness, that can actually be channeled into a positive force, getting things done and bringing people together.
Absolutely, yeah. And their energy, it fuels their passions and drives them to make a real difference in the world.
That's awesome. Okay, and then one last thing I wanted to touch on is adaptability. In a world that's constantly changing, being able to roll with the punches and thrive in new situations, that's a pretty important skill to have.
It is. It is. And people with ADHD are often very quick learners. They can adapt to new environments, new challenges really easily. And that's because their brains are always looking for novelty, for stimulation. They're naturally curious, open to new experiences.
So instead of seeing ADHD as this limiting thing, we can actually view it as this, unique set of strengths that can lead to amazing things.
That's exactly it. It's about reframing the narrative, embracing neurodiversity and understanding that different doesn't mean less than.
Well said. Okay, so we've talked about a lot in this deep dive. The challenges, the strengths, all the different ways ADHD can affect people's lives. What are the main takeaways you want our listeners to leave with?
Well, first and foremost, ADHD is a real medical condition. It's not just a matter of laziness or lack of willpower. It's important to get rid of all those myths and the stigma around ADHD and approach it with understanding and empathy.
Right, yeah. Recognizing that ADHD brains are wired differently, and those differences come with both challenges and amazing advantages.
Exactly. And another important thing is that ADHD isn't a one-size-fits-all thing. It looks different in every person. So understanding those individual differences, that's key for finding the right support.
Yeah, we need to move past those stereotypes and recognize that ADHD can manifest in a lot of different ways.
Totally. And then the last thing I'd say is that it's important to focus on both managing the challenges and celebrating the strengths, because with the right support, people with ADHD can absolutely thrive and achieve anything they set their minds to.
That's such a great message. Thanks for sharing your insights with us today. It's been a really eye-opening look into the world of ADHD.
My pleasure. And to all our listeners out there, remember, you're not alone. There's a whole community of people who understand and celebrate neurodiversity.
And thanks to all of you for listening to this deep dive on ADHD. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Cenario podcast. Don't forget to visit Cenario.com for more expert tips, articles, and supplements designed to support your mental health. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe and share it with a friend. Until next time, take care of yourself.